Welcome to
Welcome
the
to the
Empress and the
Empress and the
Fool.
Pool.
I'm Sarah Ditmore,
And I'm Kaitlyn Gulock and Soda.
and Soda is here, our little puppy friend.
Yeah.
And we're here to discuss all things magical and mystic from the perspective of two curious witches. We gotta get like a little
Yay!
sparkle sound effect to come in right there.
That would be so nice. Little wind chimes?
Ooh, I like that. I have a bell somewhere. Oh wait, here we go. Little.
That didn't come through on the audio for me.
Okay, cool, fun. Anyway, what are we here to talk about today, Caitlin?
Today we are here to talk about what the heck is cartomancy?
Where'd it
What the
come
heck?
from? Why do we use it? What does it do? Yeah, I am really excited about this one.
Me too.
Do we want to just like dive right in? Are there any life updates that we want to share?
Quick disclaimer, I am a single parent. So if my dog makes noise in the background, I hope it just adds to the whimsical, adorable,
Yeah.
unfiltered
Yeah, it
nature of us.
humanizes us.
Yeah. So bye,
Yeah.
Soda. Um,
My only life update is that I had the largest piece of banana bread of my life today.
was it good? You
It
made it, so
was
it was good.
it was from a friend actually, and it was about to
Oh,
go bad, and I was like, I need to eat this before it goes bad, and it was legit 3, 4 inches thick. I just ate an
I'm so
entire chunk of banana bread because I was like, well, it's gonna go bad. So
I'm so proud of
thank you. It
you.
was delightful. That's my only
Um,
update.
I don't really have any updates except for I'm in school and EKGs are kicking my ass
Oh,
and
fun.
my partner is coming to visit because
Yay.
at time of recording, Valentine's Day is coming up soon. And I'm
Yay,
so excited.
romance.
Yay, romance. I think since we recorded, I got two new tarot cards.
Yeah,
One
decks, you
of
mean? But
them,
yeah.
tarot card decks, yes, two single
Just
decks.
singular. I just went out and hunted. I'm building a deck by like purely finding cards. I wonder
I
if it
kind
would
of want to do
work.
that now.
That would be kind of cool.
New idea.
Did
Okay.
I tell you? I don't think I told you about my magical card moment. This feels appropriate for the episode theme. So, I have recently had, which I'm not going to talk too much about online because it's still coming together, but I've recently had a work opportunity be presented to me that I'm like considering and looking into. And two things happened. Oh, this isn't the right journal. I'll have to go find it. But two things happened. The day I first heard about the recording or the work opportunity, I was like driving to run errands and I was thinking all about like, could I make this happen? What would it look like financially? Like, is this doable for me? And then I'm usually someone who just either like trusts my intuition or pulls tarot cards. Like those, I'm not usually the kind of person who's like, I want a sign, you know? But for
Hmm.
whatever reason, I was just like, I just wish I could have like a sign of if this is aligned or not. And literally, I say that, and then I turn this corner, the biggest rainbow I've ever seen in my life, like double rainbow. I'm driving like smack dab through it. And then the next day, I go to a coffee shop to, with my journal to like see if I can make the numbers work. I'm like, okay, intuitively this feels good. Like it's a cool opportunity. Does it make financial sense? So I go to this coffee shop with my journal to like do all the budgeting, like looking at all that. And I'm going to sit at the table I always sit at this coffee shop. And as I'm going to sit down, I get that like intuitive ping of like, no, we're sitting at that table today. And I was like, okay, weird. So I turn to go to the other table. And as I approach it, there's a playing card laying face down. And so I pick it up and it's the 10 of clubs, which in traditional like divination, the 10 of clubs is like financial success, unexpected business opportunity, like investments that are worthwhile and like seeing investments like come to success and fruition. I was like, okay, I get it. I get it, spirit. I should do this
Heard.
thing.
Heard.
Yeah, exactly.
I love the first sign is like, we're gonna give you the biggest and gayest sign that we can.
Uh-huh.
And then the next one is like, hey, we know you like playing with those cards.
Yeah,
So
here's a card.
here's a
And it had a
card.
little fishy on it for my little Pisces soul.
Stop, I love that.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
love.
A
Well,
hol
I'm
I wish I had it.
excited.
I need to go find it. It's like a little holographic fishy. It's really
Oh, you
cute.
kept it? I love that.
Of
Oh
course
yeah,
I
you
kept
have
it.
to.
Like
Of
there
course
were
you
no
kept it.
other cards anywhere in there. It's not like it wasn't like, oh, they have a deck of cards and this one had fallen out. It's like someone had been at that table doing cards and that one had, been left behind for me.
And it's yours.
Yeah, and it's
I
mine
love
now.
that. Oh, I love that so much. And
Which leads us into our topic of cartomancy.
yeah. Yeah, I'm honestly I'm so excited. I also love yeah, so cartomancy is and like Sarah's done so much research on this and is def the Empress,
My
the
nerd's
person
about to
who's like
show.
more responsible and put together person. But yeah, cartomancy is the broader term, and tarot and oracle cards like fall under that. So
Hmm.
cartomancy is using cards, traditionally like playing cards like a deck of cards to divine, to read fortunes, to tell about
Yeah.
situations. So that's what we love doing. We love cartomancy, usually through tarot.
Yeah.
But there's a really cool history behind it. And I'm so
Yeah.
excited to get into it because I also, while I was in Montana visiting my partner, I realized I didn't bring my tarot cards, which is something that I never
I
forget
like
ever.
literally never travel without a deck. I hardly even
I
like go run errands without a deck in my purse.
So the one that I showed last week, this
Yeah.
one, I keep it in my bag every time I travel, and TSA stops me every time for this
Really?
deck of cards. Yes, because it looks really weird on the X-ray scan,
Huh.
and they don't know what it is. And it's like it has a metal piece, and it's like solid cards.
Yeah.
And I've offered to every single TSA agent, I'm like, I'll read your cards if you want, and they're like, haha, maybe next time.
I'm sure they're not allowed to say yes.
Yeah, every time. So I
You
was
pull the
so.
tower and they're like, "Are you a bomber?"
They're like, are you trying to take down the government? I'm like,
Yeah, but not through bombing airplanes.
yeah, not through. I'm not. I'm here through love, not through violence. But I forgot it, and I couldn't believe it. And my partner was like, "Well, fuck! I wanted you to read tarot cards. I hope that doesn't fall on me. I wanted you to read tarot cards while we were here." And I was like, "Me too."
Yeah.
What? So we went to the local bookshop that I really love. I found one card deck that I love so much, and we're going to
Oh,
review it later.
yay.
But the other one that I bought was, and I wanted to buy all of them, obviously. But the other one that I found is this one that I haven't even opened yet. It's the
Wow, it's
Hermetic Tarot.
beautiful.
And it's based on the kind of like original tarot deck that Sarah's going to be
Mm.
kind of walking us through. So I'm going to open this up for the first time while
On
we're on
camera.
camera. Uh,
An
should I?
unboxing, one might say.
So this is my new favorite product.
Good,
Wait,
yes.
what's the other? I don't have nails. I
The
can't do that.
ASMR, yeah.
I have no nails. I have nubs.
I hear nothing. I can make the sound effects.
Yeah, this is
Click
great
it, click it,
Foley
click it,
work.
click it.
So after I fill my coffee a little bit, let's freaking get into it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm really excited to talk about this. I'm a little bit like it's funny because I didn't like history in school very much, but I love history about the like stuff that I'm interested in. And and so I loved diving into the history of this. It's really interesting. So basically as Caitlin mentioned, like the concept of cartomancy, the word, it means fortune telling through playing cards. That's like, in so many words, different dictionaries define it differently, but it comes down to fortune telling using playing cards in one way or another. But the word cartomancy itself is actually comes from the 18th century. A guy named Jean-Baptiste Alliette, who we will talk about. He
I'm
was a
so glad you're
French.
doing the French.
Yeah, I will say all the French words, and I won't say them perfectly, but I'll do my best.
I'll do worse.
Jean-Baptiste Alliette was a French occultist and tarot researcher, and he was the first person to develop like a written interpretation of the tarot, of like a guidebook, basically, of here's what the cards mean. And so the word carte in French means card, and then in Old French, mancy meant divination. It was spelled with an IE, but same, same.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, neither did I. Most of this stuff was new info to me. So that's where the word came
Cartomancy.
comes from. Cartomancy.
Cartomancy. Why am I doing Italian hands
Yeah,
with
I was
it?
gonna say, and also your French
Cartomancy.
gets very it makes me think of the chef from Little Mermaid.
Oh, good.
Les poissons, les poissons.
Awesome. Omelette de fromage.
Yeah, yeah, sure.
Yeah, I am right there.
God, so we've gotten all the French listeners to leave. Any
Au revoir.
okay. Anyway, um, so that's where the word comes from. We'll talk a little bit about Jean-Baptiste Alliette later on when we get into tarot specifically, but I wanted to kind of back up and look at the history of playing cards as a form of divination, because before we had the tarot deck, we had normal playing cards. And when you look at like the history, the recorded history and mentions of cartomancy, you'll see that like as soon as playing cards start showing up, so does using them for divination. It's not like, oh, they were playing and then they started divining. It was like always both.
Hmm.
And what I love is it has very much like a folk magic history to it where when you look at and learn about folk magic traditions, it's not like here's the everyday stuff we do and here's the magical stuff we do. It's all interwoven. And so similarly, there's a lot of conversation around like cartomancy where it's not like they took the playing cards out and pulled divination cards. They would be playing the game they would be playing, and someone would pull like a card and then be like, oh, I guess like you have a lover coming your way, or like new money, or like, oh, there's a death around the corner. It wasn't like, oh, let's pull cards to read our fortunes. It was like, oh, we're playing cards, and the cards we pull will inform our fortunes. It was like all one and the same for a while. And then it
Poker
kind
must
of
have been
became,
weird.
what?
Poker must have been really weird back then.
Okay. You're like betting not only on if you'll win, but betting on if you'll have a new baby or not.
You're like, oh shit, John, you're gonna get hit by an ox cart. Like, but also straight flush.
Do you think your fortunes only came true if you won the game?
Ooh.
Or if you lost the game? Like, I don't know.
Yeah, well, like, what if, oh, but if you win the hand, you get the good one. But if you
Ooh.
lose the
Ooh, you're actually
hands,
betting on the fortunes.
yeah, yeah,
We're
yeah.
making up
So,
our
like,
own variation of cartomancy. I love this.
yeah, yeah. So, like, you win three sheep,
Yeah,
straight up three sheep. Love it.
incredible.
You lose, a
Hit by
sheep
an
shits
ox
on your
cart.
pillow. Oh,
How to get in there?
I don't, I don't know. Cartomancy. Who knows?
Anyway.
Anyway, yeah.
So yeah, so there's a lot of a more like casual history of it, but we do have a few mentions that and often like when you're digging into folk magic and folk history like this, it's usually much later that you start to get books like what is cartomancy or how to use the tarot for divination, like things that were more common. Like this comes up a lot with goddesses as well. Like I think a lot of people have heard of the goddess Hecate.
Mhm.
And like tracing her origins is really hard because she was so common that no one was
Mm,
like writing anything down about it because it was like, oh, we all know her. Like, and similarly with cartomancy, you don't have a lot of recorded history of like how it was used in the household because nobody was studying like how householders were using cards, And so
mm,
it's always like a interesting history to see little mentions, and when the mentions are casual it implies that this is like a known thing, right? Because it's like,
mm,
oh, we're not like studying like this weird thing. It's like, oh yeah, and they were using their cards for divination, like whatever. It's like, oh, that was a thing people knew about. And so we have a few of like those kind of mentions in like the 1400s, 1500s, where like people, like there's this one quote from writings that were just documenting activities in the Spanish court, where Fernando de la Torre says about like special types of cards that they were made so that players could tell fortunes with them to know who each one loves most and who is most desired, and by many other and diverse ways.
that's so vague.
I know. So it's just like, oh yeah, they had those cards that were used to say like who loves who, who's gonna make money, like what's happening in the court,
That sounds like it sounds like mostly a little bit horny. Not
I
gonna
think
lie.
I think a lot of early cartomancy, and we'll see a couple more quotes as we go through our examples, were around relationships. And it makes sense because at that time, like who was marrying who was much more than just like a question of love. It was a question of social status and wealth and
Right.
like, political moves. And so there's much more at stake for relationships than just like, am I gonna get married?
Right.
Yeah.
Like, are you gonna get married to like
A duke? Yeah. Or are you gonna like are you gonna have like what's the girl in Pride and Prejudice who like goes off and marries the guy that's like not worth anything and it's like a drama?
oh, it's the little sister.
Yeah.
Oh, he just sucks.
Yeah. Well, someone's
All right.
screaming the name right now. Um
Wait, hold on. My child is trying to eat
Sorta needs
cables.
you.
Yeah, she's trying to eat cables. It's
Oh,
fine.
good,
Okay,
good.
we're back.
So then, unsurprising to anyone, around the 1600s, it starts to get associated with witchcraft.
Like most things that are fun.
Yeah, most things that women did. And so you start to see in the like 1600s, you start to see like within witchcraft trials mentions of cards and dice and other forms of divination. And it's often mentioned as like specifically, it didn't seem like the problem was that they do it. It seemed like the problem was that they did it on its own. So it was like they would charge
Mm,
clients and they would see clients for card readings rather than just reading, like jokingly being like, oh, you're gonna find love because you pulled the King of Hearts or something, you know? It's like it
right.
became, because they actually made money and used it as a career, it became associated with witchcraft and therefore a problem.
I
And
hate
then
that.
I thought this
Oh
was,
wait,
oh,
hold
go
on. I have
ahead.
to pause really quick because my baby is crying right now.
Oh no, I'm
I
out.
know. So I think I'm gonna have to like crate her for 2 seconds
Okay, cool.
while we.
I'll wait for you.
Okay.
But yeah, so
Sorry.
it starts getting associated with witchcraft. There's this one quote that I found really interesting that in 1615 there was the witchcraft trial of Margarita de Borja. I'm not as good at Spanish pronunciation as French, so sorry. And in
How
that
dare you?
in that trial, they talk about how she's reading cards for clients. And they say she would shuffle the cards while reciting an incantation. Lady Saint Martha, you are in the church, you listen to the dead and inspire the living. So tell me through these cards what I am asking you about. Blew my mind. Because
Who's who's Martha?
I know I need to, or Margarita. Oh,
Margarita.
Saint Martha, you mean?
Saint Mar. Yeah, who's Saint Martha?
Let's find out. Saint Martha. Oh, she's like, I did look this up. She's like a household. Like she's a saint of like butlers, cooks, domestic servants, housemakers, housemaids.
Oh.
Um, so she was like their saint that they would work with. But what I love about that is I think that myself and so many like card readers today, there is an overlap right between like card reading and like mediumship and like working with
Hmm.
spirits of the dead. And it's often seen as like getting wisdom from spirit. And to me, this is evidence that like that theology existed in 1617 when she's saying like you
Yeah.
listen to the dead and inspire the living. So tell me through these cards what I'm asking you about. It's so cool.
And there's like, and I know that like Spain is a largely, especially in that time, very Catholic.
Yeah.
And that's like a thing that's really common with Catholicism is
Hmm.
relying on saints for really specific things.
Hmm.
So like, what is it? I think it's like Saint Christopher is for travel. So you see a
Yeah.
lot of surfers with a Saint Christopher pendant to keep them safe while they're on the
Cool.
water.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's like a lot of it is very like witchcrafty, like that
Yeah.
tradition of like we have specific saints for specific things. Like
Yeah.
I can't remember there's one my family is like I lost my keys like Saint Joe
Anthony?
I want to Saint Anthony,
Yeah. I was like, I'm
Saint
pretty sure because I've evoked Saint Anthony before. It's like a lot of
oh
folk practitioners I know, a lot of folk magicians either have Catholic background or have like integrated Catholicism, not Catholicism, but like folk Catholicism, like the saints. are
Yeah.
spirits, right? And
Yeah.
that's an energy. That's like a whole thing we could talk about, but
And it will be
add it
something
to
that
the
we talk
episode
about.
list. Like, who are the saints?
Oh, I
Um,
love that. Okay.
but yeah,
Writing
so
that down.
so I thought that was really fascinating. And so we have these like there's this wave of kind of the mention of cartomancy and witchcraft trials. And then as you get into 1700s, we have one of the most famous mentions of cartomancy was in Giacomo Casanova's memoir from 1789, when he mentions that he chastised a young Russian peasant girl who was practicing divination with playing cards and was predicting and sharing about all of his infidelities. And he got mad at her,
Tea.
like, stop telling my wife that I'm cheating on her. Like, cut it out.
That's such I
Her name is Zare. She is my hero.
that's some hot tea. She's like, listen, shuffle, shuffle,
Um,
shuffle.
so that's a lot of like what we have in terms of recorded history. I do just want to mention that like a lot, it seems from the recorded history we have that it was a lot of like household practices and folk
Mhm.
practices of just integrating divination into your life using playing cards. And I think that magic like that often goes unrecorded, especially because all the records we have are from like France, Italy, Spain, and England, and it's all in the elite communities. And so all of
Yeah.
the communities or trials. And so it's like we don't have a recorded history of people like, this mention of the young Russian girl. It's like the Slavic history, the Romani history, like a lot of those cultures are more oral histories and things weren't necessarily
Mhm.
recorded. And so there are people who have that history, like we'll get to this when we talk about resources, but there's a great podcast called Romanistan, and they just came out with a book called The Secrets of Romani Fortune Telling. And they talk a lot about the history of like card reading, but it doesn't show up in like the research because it's an oral
Mhm.
history and it's a newer movement that those things are being recorded and shared. But a lot of that kind of real history of where cartomancy comes from isn't available to us because it's either cultures or communities that weren't being written about at the time.
Well, and also too, probably by the people who were using them as well. Probably, I again, like I'm not a historian,
Yeah.
but um, they probably like weren't super literate either,
Hmm.
or like didn't have the
Or didn't have a
resources to,
literary like practice. Yeah.
yeah, or like didn't have the resources to like write stuff down like that. Like
Yeah.
that just wasn't a part of
And I think there's
life.
also a safety piece of like, when you look at who is being written about in what ways, it's like, okay, in the courts, like you have these like fancy ladies, like kind of for fun, pulling some cards to see who they're going to get married to. And then in the
Yeah.
trials, you have the like servants and the house workers getting put to death for using cards. And so it's also like certain cultures, it's like it was not safe for them to be recording and sharing their history outside of their community because
Hmm.
it was like it could be seen the wrong way, it could be turned into like
Hmm.
witchcraft, it could be evil. So I think there's also that piece of like the racism and the like colonialism of it
Classism.
all and the classism. Yeah.
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 Rude.
So I just think it's
What's new?
important as we explore the history of cartomancy to mention that like while most of these references we're sharing are from like Europe and like the elite, I don't think that
Mhm.
that means we can assume that Europe and the elite is where the practice of cartomancy comes from. It's just
Right.
where we have recorded history of it.
Right.
So yeah, so using that, sorry, drop something. Using that 52 card playing deck was the most common until the 20 like really through till like the 18th to 20th centuries when we start seeing the tarot come around. I did want to share, I have this deck that is a recreation of an example of a like German playing card deck that they would have used for divination. So they have the suits are hearts, acorns. It's the seasons really, but you have this little
Oh,
spring leaf
and then that's
and
your notes on the top, right?
the bells. And then I've went through and researched what each of the cards means and written in like, okay, here we have this like Looks like it's pretty much the Knight of Leaves, and it means evil alignment or false woman.
Ooh.
Or like
Ooh.
the Six of Acorns means grief, loss, strife, and inconvenience. And so this is an example of a card that people would choose to use to just like play games, and it would be like, oh, I pulled like the old lady of winter. I have sickness. I have sickness on the horizon, you know? And so it's like, or like,
Oh.
oh, I pulled the Eight of Bells. There is news of business opportunity coming my way. Um, and so I just wanted to share like an example of these old decks and how they were used in that way. There's a lot of resources. My mentor just gave me actually a resource for a book about divination with traditional playing cards, like the hearts, diamonds, clubs, spades deck. So
Hmm.
I will put that in the resources section of this episode as well. But
Awesome. It
so
seems like a lot of this is much more rooted, I think, tell me if I'm wrong, but like the difference, and we'll get to that too, the difference of how we use it now versus back then, it kind of sounds like a lot of the uses back then were much more practical,
very,
like
very folk
very
magic in that
concrete.
way, where it's all like you're gonna
Yeah.
get sick, you're gonna make money, the harvest will be good, the harvest will be bad. Like this woman
Yeah.
is trustworthy, this woman is cheating on you. Like
Hmm.
very mundane concerns, you know, versus I don't think
Like
there
very
were.
concrete things.
Yes, yes, like day-to-day life, versus like more spiritual matters of like, you know, I've pulled readings for my clients that are like how can I better connect with my spirit guides? And it's like I don't think that
Hmm.
was really, well, that brings us to the tarot part of it all.
Yep.
Um, so tarot also started as a playing card game. It was called Tarocchi in Italy and Tarot in Germany. And everything I've found says it was a trick-taking game or a trump game where you would use the cards to trump each other. And I can't really figure out what that means because I don't play a lot of card games. But if that means things to you, that's what kind of card game it was.
Yeah, my grandpa used to play like bridge and hearts a lot, so I know that
Okay.
tricks are like a set of like hands. I actually don't know how to play
I didn't
either of
even know
those
that.
games. Yeah, and then I know that I kind of got in a I've had a lot of miscommunications about this because in Japan we call them trump cards or
Yeah.
trumpe is like the regular set of cards. So that's I don't know. We
Yeah.
borrow a lot of words from other cultures, but yeah,
I
we call
I
them
always
trump
it
cards.
makes me think from what I've researched, I think it's similar to like, did you ever play the game War where you'd like flip a card and it's I think that's what a
Yeah,
trump card is. It's like, oh, this card is better than that card.
yeah,
You know, it like trumps that card in some way.
yeah. That's what I would assume so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, but that was like the original version of tarot. It had 62 cards instead of the 78 that we have today,
Hmm.
which we'll talk about how that came to be. But it was a 62 card game. And the first account of using tarot as divination was 1527, where there's this account by this, I think, Italian guy who goes into this room where people are like a card, you know, it's like a
Like a
poker
parlor.
night, you know, like people
Yeah.
are playing card games, they're playing the tarot trump game. And then at the end of like playing the game, they shuffle the cards and deal them out randomly and use them to tell each other's fortune. And like that's one of the
That's
first accounts
fun.
we have of it specifically being used in that way.
I'm gonna
Um,
suggest that for my partner's future poker nights.
oh, that's a great idea, especially if you get the book on like how to read like the playing cards. You wouldn't even have to pull out the
Yeah.
tarot for it.
Ooh, I love that.
So when it becomes really popular to start using it is like more legitimately as divination and like for these bigger picture things, starts happening. I shouldn't say legitimately. I guess what I mean by that is when it becomes legitimate according to rich people. And so there was like, you know, people were doing it in their own homes, but when the rich people started caring about it was around the late 1700s. So the tarot two things are happening at that time. Esoteric movements are becoming a lot more popular. We
Mhm,
don't see the rise of like spiritism until the 1900s, but
mhm.
or 19th century, so 1800s.
Yeah,
But in the 1700s, we're starting to see more like occult practitioners, more movements around like esotericism and that kind of stuff. And at the same time, the European elite start to employ like divinators, right? And so you start to see like people who are making like wartime decisions consulting like astrologers and cards and various forms of magic. So one of the most famous examples of this like rise of tarot in this form was Marie Anne Lenormand, who was hired by Josephine de Beauharnais. Beauharnais, I don't know, but she's the wife of Napoleon.
oh,
So she was
hot.
married to Napoleon, and she hired this woman to basically advise them in all their decisions, and was like their magical tarot advisor throughout the 17 and 1800s.
Interesting.
I
I
know.
I also do know, so there's another great podcast, and I actually think that we should do an episode on the rise of like spiritism and occultism in the like 19th and like early 20th centuries. There's this great podcast that I do listen to called Last Podcast on the Left. It's for
Oh,
everything.
classic.
I know, I
Have
love
not listened
them.
to that podcast in ages, but I do know it.
So they did a couple episodes on spiritism, and I remember them saying too that a lot of the drive to use like divination and to get into occultism was because of wartime,
Mm,
because not just for making decisions, but because so many people had lost so many things
yeah. Well,
and were
specifically
grieving.
Spiritism, which is all rooted in like
Yeah.
talking to the dead.
Yeah, exactly. And so I think like, yeah, it makes a lot of sense that in the middle of
Yeah.
wartime, when people are trying to make sense of things and trying to connect with loved ones, that they go into kind of spiritism and divination
Yeah.
realms because they're all kind of like in the same soup.
Yeah.
So I think that like makes a lot of sense of why it got really popular too,
Yeah.
because
And
people
I'm
are looking
sure
for
too with
answers.
war, like the kind of war I should like war that Napoleon was doing, which is a lot of like conquering and invasion.
Hmm.
I'm sure too there was a sense of like there's a randomness of like what works and what doesn't. And so I
Yeah.
imagine like having divination to be like, is this the right time? Like, what can we
Hmm.
do to make sure we are successful? And because it was
Yeah.
his wife that employed her, I also wonder if it was focused on that or if it was more focused on like court politics, right? Of
Hmm.
like what's happening within the court. There,
Yeah.
I don't know, but I do know that she was like employed to basically be her consultant.
That's very cool.
Yeah. And so it's right around then that we get the mysticism piece of it all.
Mm.
So I don't know if you're familiar with the concept of Egyptomania, which is basically that the elite, specifically in Europe, in England, but really in a lot of areas in Europe, were very racistly obsessed with Egypt. Like, I don't know if you know this, but like used to eat mummies. Do you know about this?
I literally just was thinking
Yeah.
about that.
That like
Yeah.
the English people used to just like eat mummies, which is like super fucked up.
Yeah,
And
I think they used to think it would like cure ailments or like extend
maybe
life.
like a little bit of a like fountain of youth kind of thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's uh,
Yeah, it's
I'm into
disgusting.
very I'm
And
into
it was very like big around this time, this whole concept of like everything Egypt is like sacred and magical and like dangerous but sexy and like not that they would ever use the word sexy in 1700s, but you know, that was the
no.
vibe.
Oh, an ankle showing. Um
Oh.
actually, so part of my research too kind of touches on this a little bit as
Mm.
well. So sorry to interject,
Yeah, no, I
but
think this is a good melding.
yeah, so I was really interested in the global um like global origins of cartomancy.
Yeah.
And so on kind of Egyptomania, a lot of people think that or there's like a lot of theories that tarot originated from Egypt and that the like, white aristocracy from Europe took it and made it popular in them.
I'm pretty sure it's a myth.
It is a myth.
Yeah, because my
Yeah.
research is like this guy basically pretended it was from Italy or from Europe. I mean, nope, Egypt.
Egypt. Third
It
time's a
was
charm. I love
located in
it.
Europe, not Egypt.
Yeah, yeah, so I was kind of looking through different continents, and definitely Egypt came up as because there's a lot of imagery in the
Yeah.
tarot, and especially in the Rider-Waite-Smith's tarot that we have, which is, very like pyramids and sphinxes and like
Hmm.
very much Egypt's inspired art.
Yeah.
And of course, like because of a lot of these kind of lost histories, there might have been something there, but again, like tarot, the tarot as we know it today did not actually come from Egypt. I think it kind of
Yeah.
lent itself to like that Egyptomania of like,
Hmm.
oh, this is more mystic because it came from Egypt. Like this is
Yes.
more spiritual because it came from Egypt.
Yeah. And we
And
can
that's not the
blame
case.
that on a man named Antoine Court de Gebelin.
Mm,
Because he basically in the 1700s he claimed that the tarot came from Egypt and that the knowledge was found that he like they had found the lost knowledge in the lost library of Alexandria. And so he came up with this whole myth
oh,
basically
really?
of like, yeah, the tarot's from the lost library of Alexandra, and I have discovered the knowledge that was once found there, and I can inform you on the magic of tarot. And so it's very like snake oil salesman energy, very
And
like
don't get me
capitalizing on
wrong.
the popularity of Egyptian like myth and magic. And like I think there's too something to be said about you have hieroglyphs that look very like storytelling and you have papyrus, and so like it makes sense why he could come up with this story and have people latch on to it. But
There's a
it
lot of incredible things that like to give them,
Yeah, and
yeah,
I'm
like
sure
you're
they
saying, to give
had
them
their own
credit.
divination practices, but like in ancient Egypt, but it's like just that I think we see this a lot in white culture of like when
Mm,
something's magical, we have to give it origins that are from the other, right? We have to give it
yeah.
origins of like this is, and it always has to be ancient. It couldn't possibly be like a modern Egyptian. That's how you say that. It has to be like an ancient Egyptian. And same like, I see that
Yeah.
a lot in like the New Age spirituality where it's like our own ancestors
Hmm.
have so much magic and so much wisdom, but instead we're stealing practices from Native American cultures and like
Yeah. Indian cultures.
and Indian cultures, exactly. And so
Hmm.
it's I think a very common practice in white community of once something's has the essence of magic, we also have to give it the essence of other to give it like legitimacy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think too, my other thought kind of like why Egypt might have been a really compelling place to draw
Mhm.
spiritual practices from too. Like they are, and at their time, like at the height of ancient Egypt civilization, were incredibly technologically advanced, like
Yeah.
beyond their credit. Like being able to
Yeah.
make the pyramids, like the math and engineering that went into that is
Right.
like so we do not give it
Right.
enough
And
credit.
so we say
And
it had to be aliens or magic because we can't believe that a bunch of people from Egypt could have created this.
yeah, and a lot of connection with the dead as well, and
Yeah.
a lot of the practices that they had, and a lot of the strides that they made in
Mm.
embalming and kind of death
Mhm.
medicine and science. So it make it like not to
Right. I don't agree
not
with
to
it, but I
excuse it.
understand why it was a thing.
Yeah,
Like I understand why he was like, "Oh, this tarot, let's make it more legitimate and magical." How do we do that? We say it's Egyptian. Like I see the threads that led to that, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
And now we know in modern times, and as people who are continuing to learn, there are ways to appreciate and not appropriate.
Yes, yes. So that's when it starts to become associated around then in this mid 1700s with like mysticism, right? That there's this
Mhm.
like occult magic behind the tarot. And at the same time, the guy who came up with the word cartomancy that I mentioned earlier, Jean-Baptiste Alliette, also kind of was the first tarot, I don't know, like
Practitioner,
what
historian.
he created a bunch of book like this educator, tarot educator. He created a bunch of books on like ways to do divination and read fortune telling with the tarot. He created his own tarot decks. He was really the source of like, I mean, the word cartomancy was developed by him. Like he really popularized the concept of tarot for fortune telling.
Hmm.
Um, and so that's really when that became a big thing. one thing I put in here that I get a kick out of is that he had all these like serious occult esoteric books on like reading the tarot that were for men. And then he had one book that was called Cartomancy Game for the Amusement of Ladies
Fuck
because we
off.
couldn't do real magic. We had to just play it as a game.
It like reminds me of when you go to like Home Depot or like
Mhm.
Lowe's and they have like
A pink
saw and
screwdriver.
then a pink saw. Yeah,
Yes.
like it does the fucking same thing. Why are we doing why are
Yeah.
we
Yes.
doing
It has
this?
to be a little bit pretend if the women are doing it.
Like this is the cute version for you.
Yes. Well, we
Oh,
can't
ew.
excite our humors or we might have hysteria. I mean, that was like a real thing. Like women couldn't get involved in this stuff because it would be too exciting for them.
Uh, okay, I have a total ADHD sidebar moment.
Yeah.
This is one of my like side passions is originally to cure hysteria, and there's like a TV show about it. I can't remember what it's
Okay.
called. Um, you should look it up if you're not faint of heart. But to cure hysteria, they would make up these like mechanisms and like machines to give women orgasms to cure them of hysteria.
Because we were all just sexually repressed and disempowered and needed to have an actual orgasm because no men were giving women orgasms.
Yes, and it was a medical treatment, and the essentially like fucking medieval looking vibrators and sex toys look so horrifying. They look like torture devices, like a la the Princess Bride, the pits of despair.
Yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah,
if you're curious and
yeah.
not faint of
Okay.
heart, like go look up ancient
This
sex
will be a
toys.
tangent for me later. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Anyway, that was my sidebar. Thank you very
No, I
much.
loved it. Yeah, so that's, late 1700s, tarot starts getting popularized in this way. And then fast forward to 1909, when an English mystic, Arthur Edward Waite, designs the current pack that we use today. So basically, that change from the 62 cards to the 78 cards is because of weight. Like he redesigned the structure of the tarot of like what cards are in the tarot, what's the anatomy of the tarot, right? Um, but it was very much based on the OG, but with some changes.
Right,
Uh to both modernize and also to like mysticize it, if like they didn't want just like the court jester, they had to have the fool and like things like that,
right.
to make it all feel a little more magical. And he worked with Pamela Coleman Smith, who did all the art. We talked about this a bit in our last episode about the Rider-Waite Smith Tarot. They were both members of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, which was like a secret occult organization. And here we have the Hermetic Tarot. Um,
Yeah, based on the esoteric workings of the Secret Order of the Golden Dawn.
And a big reason that this was created in 1909 was because traditional tarot decks were really hard to come by because we didn't have printing presses, we didn't have like mass printing of cards. And
Yeah.
so actual tarot decks that were used for divination in the 1700s were like super rare, super hard to find. They were all made on paper that like didn't, you know, it wasn't mass produced. And so as tarot became more popular in English speaking countries, they produced the Rider-Waite Smith tarot we have today. Though I
Mhm.
do think it's interesting that throughout all of this, we have this side creation or popularization of the Tarot de Marseille, which is its own French tarot deck that continues to be very popular in France, and it only uses the 22 trump cards, so the major arcana. They don't use the
Oh,
minor arcana for fortune telling. They just use the 22 major arcana, and then the minor arcana are just like playing cards, and that's the Tarot de Marseille.
wait, pause for like a hot minute, really quick.
Do you have a Tarot de Marseille?
I don't know.
I saw one
No,
recently and I almost bought it, but it was like vintage. It was like from the 40s, but it was so expensive and I didn't have that kind of money. Someday though.
I don't remember where I got this, but that's what I was thinking of when you said that.
Oh, le tarot
Astrologie.
astrologique. Yeah, that looks more
Yeah,
modern.
Yeah, this definitely
and
is.
Egyptian.
Yeah, no, I was like, yeah, I was like, is this? I don't use that deck often at all. So I was like, is that what
So,
I
do you
have?
want to, now that we've gotten into the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, do you want to open your cards and see
I
what they look like?
do. I do. I love that on the back, like the example card is Aries.
Oh,
It's
classic. Son of the Morning. Ooh,
I know, it's very cool. It's literally it's I have not opened this.
that's so cool.
I know. I'm really excited. I was honestly like so chuffed when I saw this unboxing.
The Hermetic
Um,
Tarot.
it's very cool. And it's all black and white. I really like the card design. I'm gonna put it
Oh,
sideways so you can
wow. It looks very much like when you were a kid. Did you ever do those things where you like stare at the puzzle for a really long time, like an image pops out, the like magic image, and
Yes.
the back reminds me of like a black and white magic image.
Oh, yeah. Have you looked at one of those and then looked at The Starry Night by Van Gogh?
No?
That one is wild.
Okay, I will.
Recommendation. All right. Wow, these are okay. I'm just gonna pull Empress and Fool, um, because that's our podcast. All right, so starting with the Fool, we have the Foolish Man.
The Foolish Man. Is he like a centaur?
Let's see. Oh no, he has a wolf wrapped around him
Okay. But he
and is
looks like he has
holding.
four legs.
I think that's like the
Oh, the
dog
wolf pelt.
behind
Okay.
him. There's an alligator at the bottom, and he's holding a poppy. It's interesting. This is like very,
I
it's
like
very
how much they
wild.
have the symbols of like the elemental, they have the element symbol, they have the astrological, like planetary symbols. He looks
Yeah.
way more like he has his shit together than. Oh, it's a living wolf. I didn't notice that. I thought it was like a dead.
Yeah,
Oh, okay. No, it's like a wolf wrapped around his legs.
and
Very angry looking wolf.
little alligator down
Alligator
there.
at the bottom. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. All right. Let's look at the Empress really quick. Where did I put the rest of this? Oh, sorry. I just looked at the Magician, and it's the Magus of Power, like
The Magus of Power.
or
That sounds
Magus of Power.
Magus?
Mag-
Magus? I don't know. But I do love
Um,
that.
and then for the Empress, we have Daughter of the Mighty Ones.
Daughter of the Mighty Ones. Oh my God, incredible. I'm so
That
interested
is,
in like I would love to understand more about the history of the like where this art comes from because I know like the Rider-Waite-Smith art is from this Order of the Golden Dawn because that's like the whole history of it is that Pamela Coleman Smith designed it. But
yeah.
like so I'm like where did this imagery come from? Because it
This,
says, okay, the Hermetic Tarot features the esoteric black and white designs of the secret society known as the Golden Dawn, which emphasize the mystical, astrological, and Kabbalic influences of the ancient order. So, yeah, I have to read up more about what that
that's
means.
literally what this card says too.
Yeah.
Like on the little like
Okay, this is not Waite Smith. It's by someone named Mathers. Uh
McGregor Mathers. Yeah.
yeah, and it says that like the society. Oh, interesting. Okay, this is cool history. The early members of the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn were encouraged to prepare personal tarot packs for their use. Um, but over time, they were based off of this guy's Mather's deck, and then his stuff was lost over time, and so this is their best attempt at like a recreation of his art. Versus the
Yeah.
Rider-Waite-Smith was not created for or within like the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, but it was created like they were members, and this was the deck they created that they then produced. So it's two different members of the Order of the Golden Dawn and the two different decks they created. Awesome.
That
Okay.
is so fascinating though. Like very I didn't know that they all were encouraged. I literally just as you were saying it, I was
I think
reading
we
it
were
in this
probably
little book.
reading the same. I was reading like their online version of that pamphlet.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, that's it's really cool to think that like you would make your own personal deck.
Yeah,
I
I love
love
that.
that
I
so
have
much.
a friend out here who specializes in soul collage, and it's that. It's making your own deck but you only use it for yourself. You don't read for other people with it. It's like your own
Oh,
personal deck. So I really want to do that at some point.
yeah.
Maybe we could do like a live one day when you and I are in the same town where we like have her come and teach us how to make a card so we could like make a card together. We could make the Empress of the Fool card.
I
Make our
would
little
love
soul
that.
cards.
And I mean, I mentioned this before. I am working on my own tarot
Yeah.
deck right now. But I
Yeah.
would love to collaborate on some like oracle cards, some tarot
Yeah.
cards. Yeah,
Yeah. Fun, fun.
that's
Someday. Keep your eyes peeled, folks. Someday we'll promote that.
empressandthefool.com/merch.
It doesn't exist yet, but it will.
Yeah, it doesn't exist. The domain doesn't even
We
exist
should
right
probably
now.
buy that domain at some point. Anyway, we'll talk about it offline.
Okay.
So I do want to talk a little. You and I both did some research about cartomancy in other cultures.
Mhm.
Um, So my research, I've done in the past research around cartomancy in Russia, just because I have a lot of Slavic heritage and was very curious. And I have this deck that's similar to yours. It's like a recreation of an old deck, and it's called the Fortune Telling Cards of the Famous Professor Swedenborg. And what I absolutely love about these cards is that they were not created by Swedenborg. Swedenborg was like a famous mystic, and these other people, Zykov, Petrov, and Sokolov, decided to name it after Swedenborg to get more like sales. It
I
was
love that.
printed in 1859, and Emanuel Swedenborg was like a famous mystic who was completely uninvolved in the creation of this deck, but it was named
Hmm.
after him. And it's got all these different, again, I've written the translations on it because it's all in Russian, but it's got like the carp and the chameleon, which to me looks like a monkey, but it's a
That's
chameleon
not a chameleon.
apparently.
That's not a chameleon that I've ever seen.
The lion, but then you also have, so it's a lot of animals, and then you also
Why
have
do?
like the banners
Oh,
and like the heart. So it's a very like symbol driven deck where each thing is like a specific symbol and similar. There's also the Spaniard
uh,
and
also,
similar to
why does the lion look like those medieval drawings of cats?
I think it was 1859. You'd think they'd know how to do a lion by now, but
Oh,
he's like
that's a
one of those animals
man.
with a human face. Yeah,
That's a
it's an animal
man.
with a human face. There's a man trapped inside this lion. He is the cowardly lion. He looks so sad. He honestly looks like the Wizard of Oz costume, where it's just
He
a dude wearing a
does.
lion costume.
That's just a man. It's
So yeah,
just
this was a common fortune-telling deck in like the 1800s in Russia. Um, And it was very similar to the way playing cards were used in that like each card had a very specific meaning. Like there's not nearly the level of like interpretation that we get with the tarot nowadays. It's like this card means good news. This card means like someone isn't trustworthy, you know?
okay.
And then I also just wanted to reference cartomancy in Romani culture.
Yeah.
So Romani culture is mostly an oral culture, and the history is passed down through oral folk traditions. A lot of the traditions that are erroneously attributed to quote unquote ancient Egypt were actually stolen from Romani culture.
Hmm.
But because we were racist against Romanis, and we believed that, like, when I say we, I mean my ancestors, like white, white Europeans
Yeah.
were very like racist against Romani and also very like had that like mysticism around Egypt that we talked about, like that would often get um misattributed. And it was popularized, like cartomancy in Europe is believed to have been popularized by the Romani population that was around in medieval Europe, that was using playing cards for divination. But again, it's a lot of like unrecorded history. There's a lot of references to like
Hmm.
scolding that, I'm not going to use the slur, but the G word of like getting
Yeah.
mad at them for reading divination or whatnot. But if you want to learn more about this, I really recommend listening to the podcast Romanistan or buying the book Secrets of Romani Fortune Telling because it goes into a lot more depth and is a really great resource for kind of understanding the history and the appropriation of cartomancy from Romani culture.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot of, I mean, I haven't listened to this podcast yet, like
Oh,
full
so good.
disclosure. I really want to, and I very much intend to. But I think it's really, it's like the history is so like, it's like sad and unfortunate and like such a beautiful culture that also very much gets stereotyped into
Yeah.
mysticism now.
Yeah.
Um,
Right, like the
like
fortune tellers who wear like all the like
the
robe
scarves and
scarves and yeah.
yeah, it's very much and you see it a lot in like different TV shows or Halloween costumes, unfortunately. So there's like a lot of and you know,
Yeah, yeah, that
um,
imagery like still continues to be misappropriated today. And I think, it's something
yeah,
I see a lot in the modern like tarot reading community
hmm
of like there is legitimate practice and faith and reasoning behind the dress of like traditional
hmm
Romani culture. And then you like that comes from like a I don't know all the details, but I know it comes from like a purity, like a vow of I'm gonna represent it, so I'm not going to. But
okay,
there is like if you listen to Romanistan, they talk about this, and there is like a reasoning for that dress. And I see like people who look like and come from the cultures I come from, who are just like white Americans with European heritage who will like go to do tarot at the markets and like cover themselves in like scarves and like fake nose rings and all these things. And it's like, are you trying to like look like a fortune teller? Like what? And so I think still a lot of that like
yeah,
racist stereotyping and misappropriation. And I think like it's important for anyone who's getting into cartomancy to consider like what does it mean to like read authentically. And I think
yeah,
like an authentic representation of cartomancy is like figuring out what your belief is, what your
hmm
faith is, what your culture is,
hmm
and like dressing and engaging with the cards in a way that is aligned with that.
yeah, and like I also want to say too that there is a beauty in that aesthetic, like there is I mean, like this is like a whole different conversation about just appropriation, appreciation. Like there is so much beauty in certain aspects of it, but it's also I guess just more importantly than anything to understand and respect that history
Yeah.
and that culture is so important and like be really intentional about how you do things, not use it as a costume.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, because I like I'll say like full disclosure, I started reading tarot cards and I like set up a booth and I was like,
Yeah.
okay, like colorful scarves, like crystals, all
Yeah.
these
Oh my
things.
God. I've totally done
I'm
that.
I
Yeah.
mean, you kind of have and like I definitely didn't try to pass myself self off as
Right.
anything other than who I am, but yeah, there's like it's a really tough line to know where it
Well, and
is
I
as
think it,
well.
it becomes about like I think a lot of it has to do with understanding why you do the things you do.
Hmm
Like for me, I veil when I read cards, but I veil very differently and for a very different reason. Like for
Yeah.
me, I wear a white veil. For me, I often use this bandana. It's just a white bandana. And it's because my teachings are rooted in spiritismo and for that you're working with spirits and so you have
hmm
to dress accordingly and you have to veil your head and so that is part of it for me.
Yeah.
But I think it is exactly like you said, when it becomes like, oh, to make my card reading look magical and legitimate, I'm going to steal this cultural tradition that I know nothing about and don't understand and I'm
Yeah.
misusing,
hmm
versus being like, for me, I do have altars are a huge part of my practice. And so like, there are images that might overlap or look similar but come from a very different history and a different practice. And so I
Yeah.
think that's really what it is it's that you're rooting in your own spirituality in your own practice instead of trying to legit. It's similar to the like making the cards from ancient Egypt, right? It's like rather than looking into like the true meaning of these
Yeah.
cards and the practice, it's trying to legitimize it by masking it with a different culture that has that like
Hmm.
other or that mysticism,
Yeah.
simply because you don't understand it.
I love I love our chat so much. And like,
Um,
and keep in mind too, these are really hard things to talk about.
yeah,
And they're like, obviously Sarah and I are both of kind of like privileged background and
yeah.
privileged, you know, kind of
Communities, yeah.
uh, like ethnicities.
Yeah.
Um, so it is hard to talk about, but also just to like say too,
Yeah.
like we're also still learning and unpacking and unlearning
Yeah.
a lot of things too. So we're also doing our best and
Yeah.
like trying to be better
Of
about these things.
course.
So
Of
yeah,
course.
yeah.
So, did
Um,
you want to talk a little bit about the cultures and their use of divination and cartomancy that you researched?
yeah, I do. I probably should have brought this up earlier when we were talking about the origin of playing cards,
Mm.
because I am from Asia. I was kind of looking at different ways that Asia engaged with cartomancy, and fortune telling and divination is a really common practice in China, but not necessarily with cartomancy.
Mm.
However, like a lot of things that we use, China did invent playing cards, like just way, 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 way back when. It's actually kind of, um, ooh, sorry, I just got a call.
You're
Um,
good.
it's actually debated when these cards were actually created. And they weren't actually even necessarily cards. It says it's documented as early as the third century.
Wow, that's nuts.
Yeah, and these cards were like very much on these kind of like paper strips that
Mm.
were originally used for gambling.
Cool.
Surprise, surprise. But um, they look really different. They did use like different suits,
Mm.
and they did use like different number values, but it wasn't used for divination,
Yeah,
really.
okay, okay. I had a whole
Um,
different purpose. Yeah.
it was just for pretty much just for playing games and for gambling.
Epic.
But obviously, China and the Chinese Empire invented paper making, so it kind of
Mm.
makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, yeah.
From my own heritage, which is Japanese, it's not necessarily cartomancy, but we do have a form of kind of like divination of when you go to the Shinto shrines.
Yeah.
There's something called omikuji,
Okay.
and it's basically like it's a tumbler. It's like a little wooden tumbler, and you shake it around, and it has these like sticks that almost look like chopsticks in them. And
Oh,
you shake it around and then tilt it over, and you get like a stick with a number on it. Then you go to
cool.
these like yeah, you go to this set of drawers, and you pull the drawer out for the according number, and it'll give you a little fortune, and it comes in a little scroll, and it'll tell you what your fortune
Oh,
is.
I love
Which
that.
yeah, omikuji is omikuji. It's a very so it's not like cartomancy
Yeah, yeah,
necessarily, but it
yeah.
kind of has
Some
like
paper related divination form.
yeah, you like draw a random number and get a random
Yeah,
fortune,
yeah,
and
yeah.
yeah,
I know
there's
we need
like
to do other episodes about like all the other forms of divination because like it that when you mentioned the
yeah.
sticks, it made me think of like the I Ching or I Ching, which
Oh,
like
yeah.
uses sticks, and there's like so many fascinating different ways of fortune tellings, and I think that's often what you see when you like look
Yeah.
up like Asian traditions or African traditions. They still had divination. They just used materials other than cards. You see like
Yeah.
the use of bones and shells and sticks and like other materials.
Yeah. And it's really cool. I mean, it was a cool thing for me to kind of like draw a line with too. I was like, it's not it has a lot of similarities to like pulling
Yeah.
tarot cards, but it's not really the same. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm interested
totally.
to like learn more about that too. Um, so I did want to mention too, that I have a lot of like conflicting information about this as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
But in South and Central American traditions, tarot cards and loteria cards look really similar. And
Yeah.
more frequently, loteria is like more popularly used as like almost like a bingo kind of game,
Yeah.
but the
Yeah.
imagery is really similar.
I looked this
Um,
up because I thought, like, wrongly, I was like, well, but it is, isn't it? It is like a tarot deck. And then I looked it up
yeah.
and it's like what's happening with Loteria is basically a modern version of what happened with playing cards in like old ancient cultures, where like it is a game that now, like people who I know who are Latinx,
Hmm.
are using their Loteria cards for divination, but it's not traditionally done that way. And so that was really interesting to me because when you said Loteria, I was like, no, that's totally a divination deck. And then I
Yeah.
looked it up and it's like, no, I just have a bunch of witchy Latinx friends who have been like, hey, I bet I could use this for divination.
And they look super similar.
Mhm.
Like, um, like El Hombre, I think is one. La Mujer is another.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Like that I could name other ones, but
yeah,
yeah, they look really similar and they're gorgeous art. They have gorgeous,
yeah.
gorgeous art. But yeah, definitely more used as like a bingo style game.
Cool, cool.
My last piece of kind of world cartomancy was one really interesting example that I found from a an article that was written about another article.
Classic history.
Yeah, it's just a matryoshka doll of articles. It was originally written in 1899 in a journal called The Puritan.
Oh
There
my
was
God, incredible.
the
Not the
Puritan.
journal for me.
Yeah, no, not for me either. But has an interesting 11-page article written by this woman named Isabel Strong. She is white. She went to Samoa and she
And 1899 Samoa, I don't know a lot about history, but like that's giving British colonial times.
absolutely, absolutely. When the sun never set on the British
Yeah,
Empire, and
exactly.
there were wealthy white people just traveling to different colonized nations to go learn and steal things mostly.
Hmm.
But so Isabel Strong went to Samoa, and she, um, I, it's really hard to say because the cards are actually named after her and the Samoan name that was given to her, which was Thiele. So they're called Thiele
Okay.
cards. I think they existed before around when she was there. It's really hard to tell,
Got it.
but they're
So it's kind of like maybe she went to Samoa, was introduced to this deck or this
yeah,
plate, like maybe like handmade local
uh-huh,
practice, and then was like, oh, I could make these, and then printed them for
herself.
Europeans. Yeah.
And named them after herself.
Yes, of
So
course.
it is really hard to tell. There is the original document is or the original article that she wrote is available in our reference notes, which is really interesting to read.
Yeah.
But it is a deck of 35 cards and had like you were kind of showing me of your the Slavic deck.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it has images of animals, nature, everyday items, and people. So yeah,
And
that
I'm
was
sure
kind of
it's like a blend because there are things on here that are
mhm.
very, I mean, it's very European looking. And so
Yes.
I would imagine like either she made it all up or she very much blended this like tradition that she was seeing with her own European heritage to make this kind of like quilt of a deck that is like
Hmm.
uh that's like based on some old form of divination in Samoa that she turned into like because I mean that is a European garden in one of these images and like that's a
And
big
it's a boat.
factory and a like and a European like ship like a fire like
Yeah.
those are very European images
Yeah.
and so I wonder, I would be interesting to be able to like be a fly on the wall of like that development of how like her,
Yeah.
whatever she experienced in Samoa informed the creation of this deck and whether it's
Yeah.
actually rooted in anything or if it's total like just her own story, you know?
Yeah. I think it's fascinating that that first hand document is still available online and you can go flip through it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fascinating. So again, just kind of another
Yeah, because
like
it's her, so she published the article. So it's all like she is our resource for this information. So
Yeah.
we have a firsthand account, but we have a firsthand account from someone who we don't necessarily view as like a trusted resource.
Yeah, who might have kind of
Yeah, who
put her
knows?
finger
Who
on the
knows?
scales.
Oh,
Um,
fascinating. It's
yeah, it's
giving that guy who was like, I found the knowledge of this in like the lost, Library of Alexandria and like it's like I wonder how much of it she was just like creating a story to make money and how much of it like she truly witnessed and believed, you know?
you're like, really?
Yeah, yeah.
That looks awfully European to me.
Okay.
Um, okay, so presentation
Yes.
time.
Yes. So we have talked a lot about the history of cartomancy, and now we want to talk a little bit about how cartomancy is used today. I think before we get into presentation time, I want to talk a little bit about just like uh the topic in general of how cartomancy is used today. And then we can look at your presentation as part of that.
Yes.
Do you have that book that you wanted to share that has like cartomancy from past to present?
Yes, I do.
Yes. So different presentation
um,
guide.
yeah, so actually from the same place, same bookshop that I got um my Hermetic order
Who knew
cards.
Montana was so cool?
Montana is fucking amazing. I didn't even know where it was until it probably long after I moved to the US, but they have very cool people there. I found this book there. It is kind of more of like a coffee table book on tarot, but I obviously had to buy it.
Yeah.
Um, it is just flipping to a random page. Oh, the Hermit. Yeah, it has um, just all of these different, like all of the major arcana, and then the minor arcana is kind of in the back, but it gives you just all these different iterations of each card. And it's really
Yeah.
hard to hold up and show. But
And it's like various art from across time. So I think this is a great
yeah,
example of like if you're interested in looking at like the evolution of the tarot from past to present.
yeah,
This is more visual, like it's not going to
yeah,
give you as much written history, but it's a really great way to see how the imagery has developed, which I think is also a really interesting study of like how the popular interpretation of that word or that card or that concept has developed, of like how the art
yeah.
changes. So what is,
And
tell us
then
the, oh, go ahead.
Tarot de Marseille is also featured here.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah,
That's the
so
deck
there
I
is
almost
like a
bought, but it was too
little,
expensive.
there's a little bit of history, but it is mostly a visual representation. I've definitely been using it for inspiration for
Mm.
my tarot deck. So my favorite card, the Fool. Oh, I just hit my microphone.
That's an epic art of the fool. It's very cool.
Right, and it's amazing too to see how different people like interpret
Yeah.
the Fool and decide to visually represent it.
And what is the title and author of the book for folks who are interested?
The title is Tarot from the Library of Esoterica.
Cool.
Um, it's a really big, chunky book, but it's
Yeah, I want it. I
beautiful
need to get that.
when you're in Montana.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, online probably, but yeah.
Yeah, online, yeah. But it's very cool. It features a lot of different authors, a lot of different. It's really beautiful, and I really love the kind of um, creativity and engagement with the
Mhm.
tarot, and like just seeing how different people like view it and interpret it and
Yeah.
want to display. So yeah, that's one
Yeah.
of my favorites. Yeah.
I think something that's so interesting to me of the development of like cartomancy is like the different forms it's taken.
Hmm.
Like we had the playing cards and then we had the tarot, and both you and I have kind of shared a little bit of that like oracle decks of what as well. Like we have the Swedenborg deck, we had the
Yeah.
Samoan deck that you found, or the potentially Samoan deck. And I think that that's something that to me feels more modern is the evolution of the Oracle deck. I mean, you have the interpretations of the tarot that have come of like,
Mm.
you have like the herbal tarot or like the modern witch tarot that are all like the format of the Rider-Waite-Smith with different imagery,
Yeah.
um, versus like an Oracle deck
Hmm.
which has its own structure and its own imagery. So it's any number of cards, any imagery, any theme. You have like, ones that are plants, ones that are animals, ones that are food, like ones that are random symbols.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
So,
it's yeah, and like jokey ones and more serious ones,
Yeah,
historical. Yeah,
totally.
there's like a lot of
I
different.
don't think that there's like, I don't think there is any hierarchy of like playing cards, tarot cards, and oracle decks of being like, this one's more legit than that. I think it's just finding what works for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
whatever you like.
Yeah, and I combine them a lot all the time in my readings of like using the tarot and the oracle. Uh and I think like to me what's been interesting at looking at these decks is I always think of oracle decks as super modern, but like
Hmm.
there it seems like in the like 17 1800s like oracle decks were definitely a thing as well. I think is
Yeah,
really cool.
yeah, especially like before, yeah, that tarot kind of that like Rider
Yeah.
Waite Smith like structure got really popular. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
And I know we also wanted to talk about like how cartomancy is used today versus how it was used historically.
yeah.
Um, which I think is like I don't know, I'm interested. Like everything we've been looking at historically seems like it was a lot more practical matters and like day to
Hmm.
day, like marriage, money, property, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But I'm interested, like if you were to describe how you use tarot today, what would you say?
I think the way that I use tarot and the way that I perceive it being used more in modern society is um I think it's a little bit of like rebellion
Mm.
against kind of what is it? Organized religion, which a lot of people had grown up with. So
Yeah.
I definitely see it as a lot of a way, and that was definitely my
Mm.
part of my origin, which was I am a spiritual person, but I don't really subscribe to a lot of organized religion out there personally. So it was a
Yeah.
way to kind of explore spirituality um, differently.
Hmm.
So I do see a lot of people kind of gravitating towards it as a form of spirituality or as a form of like connecting, as a form of like advisorship.
Yeah.
Um, and I definitely see it more as like a self-reflective tool and a little bit of like the divination of like, what's this next year going to look like, you
Totally.
know?
Totally.
Um, so
Yeah, like more
I,
self-reflective versus fortune telling, like less of like,
yeah,
will the man of your dreams show up tomorrow? And more like, what can I do to be more ready to receive love?
yes,
It's a
it's
lot
a
more like
little
looking
higher level.
within. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I would say similarly, I tend to look more within with the decks now.
Hmm.
I do a lot of readings for clients that are around things like what we were just talking about, that like inner world of like, you know, what can I heal and how can I heal it? Or like
Hmm.
how can I um help my new work effort be more successful and what can I do to like clear the way for that? Or like how can my partner and I have a more nourishing relationship? But I also do a lot of
Yeah.
readings that are like even another level into the like stratosphere of like I use my tarot exam for example anytime a spirit comes through to me to get a sense of like who is this spirit, how do they want to work with me, what is their message, like how do they want to support me, what kind of offerings can I bring them. And so I think that it has become a growing tool for people to interact with that realm as well.
Yeah. I feel like it definitely feels like a very much more accessible entry into those kind of
Mm-hmm.
conversations, that kind of world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like mediumship training wheels.
Yeah,
I
little
don't,
baby
maybe not
wheels.
training wheels because every all the mediums I know still also use cartomancy, but like it's a doorway into that realm.
Yeah. And
Uh,
it's definitely since I think it's everybody knows deck of cards format. It's like kind of a relatively low cost,
yeah.
high resource thing
And
to get
something you can do
into.
on your own. You don't need a teacher right away. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's also one way in which like cartomancy has changed is that in the past where it was exclusive to pulling cards for divination, I feel like people use the symbols of cartomancy in a lot of other ways now. Like it is still used
Hmm.
as a divination tool, but also like I know a lot of people who will use cards for archetype work. So if they're trying to like uh I don't know, like manifest something, they might like put the magician card on their altar and like meditate with the magician
Hmm.
card every morning. Or if they're trying to like get a take more of a leadership role at work, they might put the emperor up and like, working with like archetypes as a form of like meditation and
Hmm.
magic. And I think you see it in spell work a lot more. Like you gave me this tattoo.
Yeah,
I have this little tattoo that was based off of strength and the star, right?
yeah,
Yeah, to help me have strength to trust myself through a difficult time. And so I think that's
yeah,
another way the tarot and cartomancy has started to be used of like using the imagery of these cards to like act as symbols for spell work and for like manifestation and like incantation work.
yeah. A lot of
Yeah.
intention setting.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um, I think it is. I think it's a beautiful thing. Again, like too, like you were saying with a lot of like TikTok and Instagram
Yeah.
readings and stuff, it can get a little superficial
Yeah.
at times. A little bit like jumping on the fad train.
Yeah.
But again, like who is anyone to judge how anybody else does things? And also, like, don't live your life based on what you see on Instagram, just generally, but also
Yeah.
about tarot. Um, you know, I think this is like it's meaningful. This is a thing that I always tell people when I read their cards. It's meaningful as long as it's meaningful to you.
Yeah.
If you don't find meaning and significance in this, who fucking cares?
Right. It's a meaning
Live
making
your
system.
best
Use it or
life.
don't. Yeah.
If you don't like the cards, you have absolute power to change your fate. Like
Mm.
you can change this around. You also don't even have to believe it or think it's important at all.
Yeah.
Like, so I think that's yeah,
I love
I think it's
that.
really cool how it's definitely more popular now and how yeah, how people are developing their own relationships with tarot. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I know
Uh,
uh it's fun to see that kind of like I think that's the last thing we wanted to talk about is like the good and the bad of the trendiness, right? And I think like the
yes.
good is that it's more accessible and like we can all find our way to tarot and like use it in ways that work for us. And I think that maybe the bad is that like some of the meaning and significance of the cards gets lost in translation and gets kind of like kitschified.
Gets really diluted.
Speaking of diluted, do you want to open up your presentation?
Yes, I do.
I'm going to do my best to describe what I'm seeing, but for this portion, I highly recommend you go to our YouTube because there is a visual aid.
There we go. Whew.
The audacity. Okay, so what I'm seeing is it's a blue crew neck sweatshirt with a large printing that is the format of a tarot card or an oracle card, and it has a skeleton sitting on a unicorn skeleton, like the skeleton of a unicorn. There's a glass of wine floating in front of the unicorn. There is a rainbow behind them. They're in front of like a night sky. It's a bunch of blooming flowers at the floor, and the little like place where it would say like the fool or like death, it says the audacity.
So just to, I don't know if I introduced really what this
Why we're
presentation
looking at
was
this?
first.
No, we were too
Yes,
excited.
yes. So one of the things that Sarah and I definitely talked about while planning this episode was it's a love-hate relationship between like the popularization of tarot and the kind of kitschification of tarot,
Yeah,
where don't get me wrong, I did a lot of this research to look up like how tarot was put on like merchandise
yeah.
and sold. And not gonna lie, I really did want to buy quite a significant portion of these things.
Yes.
However, however, I think there's some ways in which tarot is marketed as this thing that dilutes the original meaning of it and kind of makes me go, oh,
Yeah, I feel really mixed about it because I'm so not a traditionalist. And so like I'm like, yeah, do what you want. Like create, be creative, like play
yeah,
with it. Like this is not some and part of that is because the tarot is not like there isn't the cultural appropriation piece, right? Of like the tarot
Yeah,
is mostly originated and developed throughout European cultures and also like doesn't have one like sacred use of it. Like it has
yeah.
all like cartomancy in general has been a people's divination, right? And so
The people's divination.
it's like people have done it in so many different ways and found their way back to it in so many different ways that I'm like, there's part of me that's like, what what about it is untouchable? Why not turn it into a shirt because it's like cute and you like it and also like then it makes it expose it like gets more people in on like tarot as a normal thing and like I don't have people be like when I was living in Charlotte, North Carolina and I would read tarot at markets, there were people who would like act like I was the devil because I was doing witchcraft. I don't have that in California, and it's partly because this is also like popular and normalized, and so I appreciate that. I think maybe
Yeah,
the ick of it is like
taste.
yeah, maybe that. Maybe it's just tacky. Maybe we just think some of this shit is tacky.
And if you like it, no hate. Everybody has their own style, so fuck you.
Yeah.
But
And I think you know what it is? It's the same thing I feel about like it is the capitalism of it all. Is that like the more these things become kitschy and popular, the more they become financially inaccessible, right? And so it's like all of a
yes,
sudden you can't just use a playing deck. Like you have to have the right tarot deck. Someone has to gift it to you or whatever bullshit. It's like there's all these stories we tell around like having to have like different decks and the right decks and like I think that's the part of it where it's like okay, the more capitalism gets its teeth in it, the more I start to get wary about what's going to happen next.
yep.
Because look what it did to the yoga and wellness industry.
What didn't it do to the yoga and wellness industry? All right, let's move on to our next
Okay,
example.
okay.
Okay, not gonna lie,
Love
I
it.
kind of like this one.
Okay, it's a skeleton. I like that they're all skeletons, like the association with death and tarot as if that's not its own card.
Yep,
Um, We have a skeleton standing amongst like a bunch of uh
wildflowers.
wildflowers, growing flowers of some sort, like maybe cut flowers, but it's a bunch of blooming flowers. This is all white, by the way, on a like moss green t-shirt. There's like radiating lines coming out from the head of the skeleton. The number is 17. Um, is death 17 in the tarot, or is that just what is 17 in the major arcana? Will you look
That's
that
a
up?
Yeah, that's a great question.
And
Let
it's
me.
called The Gardener, and it says The Gardener at the bottom. I do kind of love, I'm immediately going, like, whoever designed this, I actually think it's kind of clever that it, like, brings the death and the garden together of, like, part of being a gardener is the death and decay and the growth and new life and, like, the balance of the two. But now I'm reading this t-shirt as if it's an actual oracle card and not just a
And not just
cute,
something cute.
just a cute way of bringing, your interests into the tarot.
Um, Number 17 is the star, and on my Hermetic Tarot deck, it's the daughter of the firmament.
Okay, so I feel like the number here is kind of random
The number is absolutely random.
because I
Yeah,
don't associate. I mean, I guess the star is like rebirth and gardeners, and this is like death and flowers. I don't know. I'd be interested to know if the number is random or not.
I think it's probably random. Not
It's
if
probably
it was
random.
my
I'm
best
giving this
guess.
designer way too much credit. This was
Yeah,
probably
I think
AI
so.
generated.
Probably. All right, the next.
Oh my God.
I
Okay.
love this shirt.
I need this shirt. This is death. And is that the right number? Let's find out. 13. Major Arcana. Yes, it is. Okay, so it's the right number. It's 13. It's death. It's like got that like black outline of a tarot card, but it just has a black cat like biting into a disembodied hand. And or no, there is, you can see the wrist. It's not disembodied. A
Yeah.
hand coming from off screen, and and then it says death, and it's adorable, and it's on a little orange t-shirt. And this one I love and have no notes.
Okay, this one is actually like one that I really did love. I found it very funny. I was like, I have to buy this for like Sarah and Jesse.
This reminds me, my friend just got a deck called the Dog Tarot, and the devil is a cat, right? 10 out of
Absolutely
10.
appropriate.
10 out of 10.
All right, next
Um,
we have this next one I have a lot of thoughts on, but
Oh my God. Oh my God. Okay. So here's my thing. I love
Uh,
okay, let me describe it first. It's black and white. It's white t-shirt, black, like kind of like looks like pencil, like line art. And the top it's like a tarot rectangle and it has words on top and words on bottom. The word on top says smash, the word on the bottom says the patriarchy. And it's like a desert landscape with a giant uterus that has flowers like growing out of it and a sword pierced into the like through the uterus, through the wait, aren't we supposed to be smashing the patriarchy? A sword pierced through the uterus into the ground. Uh Intriguing. And then like half of a sun, but like one of those suns that has like a face, but it's half cut off. Here's my thing.
so I have conflicting thoughts about this. Oh
I
my.
also would like to smash the patriarchy. I'm not sure the way to do it is to stab daggers into uteri. Though maybe
Even
if
though it
that's your
feels like that
thing,
sometimes.
like if you don't like your uterus, you do you, but uh
You do uterus.
you do uterus. But I think my problem with it is it looks like a piece of art that was repurposed for this. Like the sun being half cut off and like it doesn't look like it was designed for this. It looks like someone took this piece of art, like shrunk it into a rectangle and wrote Smash the Patriarchy to make it look like a tarot card. Because my thing is like the art, fun, great. It does like why is this in a tarot format?
The
What about
idea,
this is
great.
tarot-y? Yeah.
I know. That was the part where I was like, ah, there's so many things I like about it, and there's so
Like
many
I
things I
want the
don't.
image and then just like I want to be able to see the whole sun. I want the whole image and then I would just want like on the back or under it the words smash the patriarchy. Like why was this
Yes.
how is this at all like all the others are like play on tarot. This is like we just put it in a tarot format because that's selling well.
Oh yes, you've drawn the ace of smash the patriarchy. Like what is
Like it's also wrong. Like it should all say smash the patriarchy at the bottom and there should be like a number or something at top.
there's a lot of notes that we have on this one. Again, okay, if you're the maker of these, I like can't imagine you found us for one. We're not hating on,
I think we
we're
have 10
discussing.
listeners.
All right. I got three more for you.
Wait, I do have one more thought about. Okay, I have a lot of thoughts about this one, but go back to the other one. I have one more thought about this, which is that like the swords in the tarot are like just like identity, voice, belief, like standing up
Logic.
for what you believe in, like so I just you know what I want? I want the uterus to be wielding the sword rather than being
With one of its
hurt.
little,
Yeah, with one of its like tubes to just be like one tube lifted in the air with a sword ready to charge. I would buy that.
that's a, write that down.
Okay. Merch. Merch for the future for the Empress and the Fool.merch.com that we will eventually release one of these days. We'll have just a uterus wielding a sword and it'll say like what did you say? The ace of smash the patriarchy?
Ace of smash the patriarchy. Yes.
I'm writing this down someday. That will be our first
Oh,
merch release.
oh man. All right, I got three more for you. You got a little preview of the.
Okay. The,
Just take a. Here, I'll describe this one for you
you
while you
please do. I
digest.
don't know that I have words yet.
So this is a what appears to be a bodycon dress with the racerback straps and back.
Very like 2000s style dress.
Super 2000s. It has the image of uh the wheel, right? Wheel of
Wheel of
Fortune
Fortune, way
tarot
zoomed
card.
in.
Super zoomed in. So it's just the middle of the Rider Waite tarot style of the Wheel of Fortune in the middle. The Sphinx is right in between the tits.
It covers like the whole dress, like from mid shoulder to, I mean, that dress can't go
It's like
further than like early, like top of thigh, but like the whole
bottom
front of
of
the
crotch.
dress is that image. And here's my thing, I don't know that I think there's anything wrong with this in the sense that like, yeah, if you want to wear the Wheel of Fortune, if you really resonate with that, sure. But why does this exist?
It's so zoomed in.
It's so zoomed in. It's so
It's just
um
like pasted. It's just pasted
I think
on.
I think that's just it. It's the tacky piece. This to me just feels like cheap, tacky. like no actual artists are being compensated for labor here. Like this is entirely just like a like drop ship like money
Yes.
grab.
Yes, you took a PNG of the Wheel of Fortune and you dropped it onto one of those like
And
t-shirt
not even
makers.
well, like this is not even very well centered or
It's
like
not centered.
yeah,
It's it's baffling.
it's baffling.
Um, all right, are you ready for the next one? We got two
Yeah,
more.
I want to
Um,
burn that from my eyes.
this one I kind of like.
Okay,
Um,
see, this is what they should have done with the Smash the Patriarchy.
right?
Because
So,
you can see the whole. Do you want to describe it?
I'll describe. I can describe the rest. You've done a lot of describing work, and I've already seen these. So basically, it's a poster in a picture frame with a tarot card of a big skeleton hand giving the middle finger that says the zero of fucks at the bottom. It's adorned with what looks like roses and some kind of just ornamentation around the big middle
Yeah.
finger, and some
Ugh.
flowers. But yes, the zero of fucks with a big zero at the top. Um,
And that's just it. They did the number. I think that's my thing. If you're gonna knock off tarot, you gotta knock it off right. And like this is funny. They've done the like lettering, they've done the number, they've like
the
formatted
style
it
is
so you can
great.
see the whole image and it doesn't feel like an image that was never meant to be a tarot card. Like this feels like I could see this card being in like a modern tarot deck, like a recreation of the tarot deck, Like this feels funny, it feels artistic. I approve.
Yeah. It feels like a very good homage to tarot.
Yeah.
I also could see this in like hanging in your studio, and I
And
would just be
also,
like,
it's the zero. It kind of works with the fool energy of like,
yes,
just dive in, like I think that that's what bothers me is when people knock off the tarot in a way that just like does not acknowledge what anything in the tarot actually means. And it's like this one, like there's a play on the number, the fool, the zero, like it works.
yeah, I'm giving this a
10 out of 10.
yes. I love.
This
I
one
kind
and
of
the
want to.
cat death shirt I might buy.
Yes, actually, and we'll have all the links to all of these if you're interested in buying any of
Oh my God,
them. All of
someone get the Wheel of Fortune dress and send us a pic of how you style it.
outfit of the day. All right, here's our last one. Um, I'll describe it. You digest. Ready?
Okay, I know. Oh, okay.
So
I have so
it's a
many thoughts already.
it's a framed poster of oh god, it's almost really hard to describe.
Okay, I can describe it. It's a man and a
Go for
woman
it.
who are clearly an actual, like, it's a photo that has been digitized. Like, it's a guy, like, they're just being cute. They're like cuddling. He's like kissing her cheek. And it's like clearly a real couple that has been, the photo's been like uploaded and like put a filter that's like to make it look like it was drawn? And it's
Hmm.
in like, there's this very like artsy black and white, like border. And then it has their
Yeah.
names on top, and then at the bottom it says the lovers. And it looks like something you would see on Etsy where it's like you send them your own photo and they create one for you and your significant other. And is it weird that the thing that bothers me most about it is that it's not rectangular? It's square. I'm like,
Yes,
tarot
that
cards
is
aren't like it's not even formatted like a tarot card or like the lovers card. It's just a photo of a couple that says the lovers under it,
mine.
basically.
My thing is the fonts.
The fonts are awful. They don't even work. I mean, it's just bad. Okay, so our number one critique, I'm sorry, to this person is just
I'm
bad
so
design. It's
sorry.
just kind of poorly designed. But then my number two critique is that like the lovers is also a very complicated card. Like, yes, it
Yes,
can deal with soulmate, but it's also like Adam and Eve imagery. There's like the snake, there's like concepts around temptation and
the
like
divine feminine, the divine
yes, and like
masculine,
there's this it's like the lovers is both it's all consuming. And so it's like yes, it's like very soul aligned, it's very like good, it can come up when you like are meeting your soulmate, but it can also come up when it's like, be careful not to get so absorbed in this that you lose yourself in it? And so like there's a lot of complicated things in all the I mean all the tarot cards I think are
yeah,
they have like a positive message and like a shadow side to them. They have like different aspects of them. They are all dynamic meaning. And so to take one and be like, oh, we got engaged, we are the lovers. I'm like, I don't know that you want to be associated with that as like a one and done.
I have two thoughts about this too. So one is just visually design wise. Do you notice that the background behind the photo is not centered because it's rotated 90 degrees to the left?
Background behind the
With the
photo.
leaves.
Interesting.
Do you know what I'm saying?
No.
Okay, so if it was rotated 90 degrees to the right,
Yeah.
it would be symmetrical.
Yeah.
However, this ornamentation with the leaves has been rotated this way so it can accommodate the
Oh,
frame.
funny. I do see what you're meaning. So it's symmetrical up and down instead of left to right.
Yes,
Yes,
and
it's
that is
just
bothering me.
very poor design.
So the second thing is I'm not that sorry to say this, but I if I walked into your house and I saw this on your wall, I don't know if I'm staying for dinner.
All I know is that the more I stare at this, the more I'm thinking that for my wedding invitations, I'm going to make a tarot card that says like the wedding or like the newlyweds. And it's like a photo of the venue. And then on the back, it's like all the details of the wedding, but like formatted like a Oracle guidebook.
Can I help you design this?
So basically what I'm experiencing watching this is I hate it so much that it makes me want to make a good version.
There's something is here and
And it's not this.
it's not this. All right,
Oh, this was delightful. Yeah.
that's my last one.
So our
All right,
takeaway is that it's fine to do whatever you want with the tarot in the modern day, just make it cute.
just make it cute. And it's you know what? The one of the best things that I've ever heard is that nothing is so sacred that you can't make fun of it.
Nothing is so sacred that you can't make fun of it, unless it's not your own culture.
True, true. It comes with a lot of asterisks, but
No, but I do love that. I do
we're
love
all
that.
doing
Like
this. We're all
my
doing
my
this in
guides
jest.
are so like I think when I like do mediumship work, I think I scare people sometimes, or like not scare, surprise people because I'm like I use cuss words when I talk to my spirits, and we like sass each
Yeah.
other all the time. Like we have
Oh
a
yeah.
very loving, sassy relationship. And sometimes I'll be like, okay, I fucking heard you. And my client will be like, she can talk to her guides like that? And I'm like, yeah, like not, I would never talk to like certain entities that I work with like that. And I would never
Yeah.
like say it rudely. Like I mean it
Yeah.
jokingly, and they know that?
With loving intentions.
Yeah. Okay, so that's the history of cartomancy. That's how cartomancy is used today. We both have a bunch of resources that we'll put in the show notes. We've talked about Biddy Tarot, Golden Thread. I've shared some of my favorite books. I have a bunch more books that I'm going to put in there. Um, and this isn't even all the ones I'm writing down, but I just wanted to give a little shout out to two of these that I haven't mentioned before. This book, The Ancestral Tarot by Nancy Hendrickson, is a
Ooh,
guide to using the tarot to work with your ancestors. And it's really good, and I really like it. It has spreads, it has like ways, like questions to ask, different types of ancestors to work with. Very cool. And then
love
this
that.
one, 1001 Tarot Spreads by Cassandra Eason,
Ooh.
where literally, like, okay, say a number between 1 and 1001.
13.
It's so like small of a number.
I know.
Okay, 13 is should you consider blah, blah, blah. Should you continue saving for a house or take a break and have a longed for vacation overseas?
Ooh.
It's a tarot spread to answer that question.
I
So
have
there
money
is a
for neither.
spread in here for okay, like number 97, if you want a quiet wedding, but your family is planning a big celebration. It's like any situation you can think of is
Okay,
in
wait,
here.
what is 69? I'm like a 12-year-old boy, sorry.
69, the long vacation, sabbatical, long service leave spread.
What is happening with all these vacation things for
Well, they're
me?
sectioned. They're sectioned.
Oh, okay, got it.
So maybe you need a
Like,
vacation, but you picked two that were from like the same chapter.
got it.
if you are expecting twins or having a multiple infant pregnancy. The spread of 7, if your workplace discourages relationships between employees. Like
Wow.
literally any situation you can think of, there is a spread for in here. I rarely
Freaking
actually
love it.
use it for like clients, but it's fun. It's awesome.
I love that.
So I have a bunch of other books that are great for just like learning about the tarot and how to read the tarot. Um, and then just some general like cartomancy books. And then I also wanted to reference a few there's also some really great podcasts. There's the Tarot for the Wild Soul, and the creator of that, Lindsay Mack, also has a great Substack called No Bad Cards that's all about the tarot. Um, Mother of Mystics, Kaitlyn Graña is my mentor. They have a class that's like a online course you can buy called Tarot Lab that basically walks you through intuitive tarot reading and how to get better at intuitive tarot reading. And then I have some other podcasts and resources and stuff that I'll throw in the show notes as well. But those were some I wanted to make sure to shout out.
Awesome.
Well, should we end with a card pull?
Yeah, let's do it. Do you want to do
Happy
or should
to,
I?
unless you feel
Oh,
called to. From the Hermetic Tarot. Okay, let's do
I mean,
it.
we pulled it up. So, all right. All right. And I apologize if you could hear there's a Roomba going on in the next
I
room.
need to get a new office chair. When I was editing the first episode, I just had to keep muting like creak, creak, creak.
I love Mine has like a giant hole in the butt of my office chair, so
Good. Are you just pulling like one card of like piece of wisdom to leave everyone with? Something to keep in mind when you're reading cards for yourself? Like, what's your question for today?
um I think my question might be like about approaching your tarot practice and like
Mm.
learn growing your tarot practice, like
Like
what is
one piece of
something.
wisdom to guide us as we all, whoever is listening, whenever they're listening, what is one piece of wisdom that will to keep in mind as we approach our
Yeah.
cartomancy practice?
Yeah, wherever you're at. If you're an expert, if you're a newbie, if you're somewhere in between, let us see. Oh, this is my first card pull with these.
It's exciting.
I know. Uh, oh, it's over here. Hello. There you are. Seven of Cups, the Lord of Illusionary Success.
Oh, wow. Illusionary success. I love that.
Yeah, and I can also hear Sweat whining, but
Yeah,
yeah,
my
so
cat's asking for food.
so is my
Mm.
dog. So yes, Seven of Cups is a lot about having a lot of choices in front of you. It's like you can't take it all. Um, the idea of kind of having it all at once is not going to happen. So kind of like picking and choosing
Yeah,
where you put your energy into and letting that blossom from there.
I love
I don't know.
that.
What are your thoughts
I
on?
think that makes a lot of sense. I think like, I think
Here, I'll
the
put.
Seven of Cups to me it's a card of dreaming big and thinking practical at the same time. And
Yeah,
so I think with like cartomancy, like I think when we see people who maybe are more advanced practitioners, it's like we want to know everything. We want to know what all the cards mean. We want to never have to look it up. We want to channel while we pull cards. Like we want to have all of those, like we want the cards to ignite this mystic journey. Like I think the message here is like, yes, like engaging with cartomancy can bring all these incredible things. But
yeah.
don't expect it to happen all at once. Understand that these
Hmm.
things take time and move one at a time and see like what comes through to you and like what feels most intuitive and natural and aligned and follow that and let the rest unfurl as it may.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And those other things can come down the line, one
Yeah.
thing at a time. Yeah, I love that.
All right. Well, we have to go take care of our pets. So next
Hmm.
week we're going to be doing a deck review. Kaitlyn is going to review the Modern Nirvana Oracle.
Oh, that
So
Sarah gifted me actually, so I'm
yes, it's a good
excited.
one. So come follow along with that
Mhm.
and give us a 5-star review with wherever you're listening to help other people find this. Follow,
Mhm.
like, subscribe, comment, all those goodies. Share it with someone
Mhm.
you know. Those are all ways to help support this work.
Yeah.
If you're ever looking for a private reading, you can find me at sarahditmore.com. Link will be in the show notes. And I think we can close unless there's anything you want to promote or
No,
share.
really nothing. Mike the Mike and I have had a fabulous time, and
Yeah. Everyone pray for Kaitlyn's EKG study. That's how you can support Kaitlyn right now. Light a candle
yeah,
that they
that's
might have good studying, learn well.
yeah, wish me well because it's a lot of squiggles on a piece of paper, and I need to get good at reading those squiggles. So,
I believe in you.
thank you. All
All right,
right.
well, we'll close with our little prayer or outro of sorts.
Mhm.
As is above,
So is below.
as is within.
So is without.
Thank you,
I love you
and blessed
and
be.
blessed be. All right.
Bye.
Bye.